Hey, it's Juck. I do love these videos, but they keep dinging me for the copyrights, and I got to go and erase the audio. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you my audio version of it while we watch. And we got Trey. There's Peoples. There's Quinn. Man, does he look good. We're catching the ball out of the backfield, and we know we're going to see a lot of that this year. Peoples looks amazing, kind of like a mix between Trey and Quinn. And they always do Sam Williams-Dixon dirty and put him in these things right after Trey. It's not fair. Trey looks amazingly quick this year. 26, looking good. Sam Williams-Dixon got some good cuts. These backs look good, man. These backs look really good. Got to work on that spin. Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is, Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country.
That means we've got.
Hey, welcome into Juck on Bucks on a Monday. So very happy you chose to join me this Monday morning, and I don't need to tell you that it's Monday of game week. You already know that because it is finally here, guys. The offseason is over. Camp is now over, and it is a game week Monday. Practice at the Woody Hayes. They are planning for an opponent. No longer camp. No longer the nonsense, no longer getting ready and messing with position battles. There is a game plan getting entered starting today for an opponent, and we'll talk about that opponent today. But the last time we saw our Buckeyes play, it was not a fun experience. A lot of us left pissed off, and really it was more than just one game. 2 games to end the season made us really upset, really mad. And the first thing we look to do when we end a season like that is a place to vent. For me, I started this show, Juck on Bucks. But by the time I got the equipment for Juck on Bucks that I ordered, we were already into the second part of what we want to do after we end a season with 2 losses. And that is look for a reason for hope that the next season will be better. And we got that relatively quickly. Right. And then it just kept coming and coming. We've never quite had an off season like we just experienced. Maybe the biggest thing, Ryan Day giving up play calling to Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien was here for 3 weeks before he headed out to Boston College. And then we got the absolute dream pairing when Chip Kelly left UCLA as the head coach to come be the offensive coordinator in the same conference at Ohio State for the guy that played quarterback for him at New Hampshire. Then we got a pile of our best players who were supposed to go to the NFL decide to come back. Then we saw 3 immediate impact starters join the team in Will Howard, Caleb Downs, and Quinshon Judkins. That all seems like it happened a long time ago. And ever since then, we have broken down every which way this team could possibly look, every single position battle. I was at the Menace to Sports show on Friday, and I heard my buddy Chris Drew, I think say, it was very loud, but I think he said, this offseason felt like it went kind of fast. Not for me. Definitely not for me. This has felt like it has gone on forever. Looking back to that Missouri game seems so long ago to me. But the Buckeyes are taking the field. Like, we made it. 3:30 this Saturday, the game of the week, which is amazing that the Buckeyes are the game of the week against Akron. And that game will do a big number. Even despite this horrible opponent, that game is going to do a big number because this Buckeye team is the traveling rock star team this year. Everybody wants to see this team. The team's going to have a lot of the same players, but it's going to look and feel totally different. But let's run through the opponent first. The Mighty Mighty Zips of Akron. And being from Akron, I have been asked a lot of times why they are nicknamed the Zips and why in the hell they have a kangaroo for a mascot. Origin stories of sports teams are something that I enjoy, and this one is pretty cool, kind of. I think like the more obscure and the more weird they are, the more cool they are. You might be aware that Akron is called the Rubber City. The city boomed because of the rubber companies, and one of those companies was BF Goodrich. Obviously, tires were their bread and butter, but those rubber companies also made other things made of rubber. Are you familiar with galoshes? We don't see people wear galoshes much anymore, but I remember when I was a kid, my grandparents wore galoshes. That like the baby boomer generation was probably the last folks that I remember wearing galoshes, but they're just rubber like slips that go on top of your shoes for when it's raining. They would actually put these things on when it was raining outside to go walk outside, rubber things that go over your shoe. And BF Goodrich, the rubber company, had a pair of galoshes that they sold. Now, these weren't your standard galoshes that simply slipped over your shoe. BF Goodrich was not satisfied with those. They wanted to make some super fancy galoshes. So they made galoshes that had fasteners, metal fasteners, to really button them down properly. And they called these the BF Goodrich zipper galoshes. That was in 1922. And the University of Akron named their sports teams after these galoshes. So the Akron Zips are named technically the Zippers after the BF Goodrich version of galoshes that go over your shoes to protect them from the rain. As far as the kangaroo, it means absolutely nothing. They had a contest for the mascot. People drew a mascot, submitted it. Mr. Zip, who is now known as Zippy, the kangaroo, won. And he originally had boxing gloves with a zipper on the glove, which then later on was moved to a zipper on the pouch, which makes a hell of a lot more sense. I don't know why it took so long for somebody to figure that out. But that is the story of why they're called the Zips and why the kangaroo is the mascot. Now, we know the line for this game is Ohio State minus 50.5 points. I personally stay away from big lines like this. I've been burned way too many times betting on the Buckeyes, trying to cover a big line like this. And then they got the third string in late, and the starters on the other team are still really trying desperately to score. And they do a couple times. And then I lose my bet. So I'm staying away from it. The Akron Zips from the Mid-American Conference won 7 games in the last 5 years. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me when you look at the talent around Summit County, around this area. There's a lot, and there's a lot that, don't make it to big time programs. You would think that Akron would be able to capitalize on that. They don't. Toledo does. And it seems to me like Akron should be every bit as successful as Toledo. They're not. But they got Joe Moorhead now. Joe Moorhead was a great coach at Fordham. He has been an elite OC in his time. Last year, the Akron offense was terrible. The defense was okay. The team only lost to Indiana by 2 points. The offensive line, terrible. The running backs had just 5 touchdowns. The team rushed for 100 yards just 3 times on the year. Good luck running it against this Ohio State defense. New starting quarterback Ben Finley starts his Akron career after stops at Cal and NC State. He's a pass-first guy. Got a couple of decent targets to throw to in JUCO transfer Justin Campbell. Alex Adams, who caught 63 balls for 9 touchdowns in 2022. Not so hot last year. The competition will be pretty stiff for BIA. Let's put it that way. Last year, the Zips defense allowed 335 yards a game. They had the nation's 22nd best pass defense, but they've lost a bit from that unit. CJ Nunnally is one of the best pass rushers in the MAC, and he is actually a pretty legit player. He's probably the best player on their team, so it should be a decent test for Josh Simmons right out of the gate. The Zips have 2 returning linebackers. Both had about 100 tackles apiece last year. Pretty decent linebackers. They are in for a long day. This Akron team last year didn't just get beat by everyone. They beat themselves as well. 83 penalties for 720 yards. Their opponents had just 57 penalties for 540 yards. The Akron defense recorded 23 sacks. They gave up 46 sacks. Our defensive ends might just feast. In the first 4 weeks for the Zips, they got to play Ohio State, Rutgers, and South Carolina. Not looking good. So that's the opponent, and that's all the attention they deserve. What are we going to see out of our Buckeyes? And I mean this from more of a coaching perspective. I have gone through so many different scenarios of what this team may look like throughout this offseason as the pieces have come together, as more information has come out about the team. And as we enter into game week, what are the questions we have heading into week one? Actually, I think we can kind of group this into kind of like a block, since we have pretty much the same opponent, the first three opponents, Cream Puff City, right? So Cream Puff block, the first three games. What questions do we have that might get answered as to what this team's going to look like? I mean, obviously, we got a lot of guys that we want to see and can't wait to see, and it's going to be incredibly exciting to see them all. Guys we haven't seen yet in the uniform, and we'll go over that. But I want to go over the number 1 to 10 questions that I have about this team that I think we might be able to get some answers out of in these first three games. What does the fastball look like? That's my number 1 question. We've heard Chip Kelly and Ryan Day talk about finding their fastball, their go-to, their bread and butter, what they're going to rely on when they are going to line up and do what they're going to do. And they don't care, you know it's coming, here it comes. What's that going to look like? What is that fastball? I can't wait to see that. I think we'll see kind of in week one exactly what we're looking at here. Number 2, how much of the Chip Kelly creativity do we see? Here's a quote from Carson Hinsman. Coach Kelly has been awesome. In fact, he's very open-minded with the stuff he tries. We'll be reading off the script and we're like, this is what we're going to run out of this? Like, okay. And then it hits for 40 yards. This is the coolest thing ever. So I'm really excited for this year, and I think everyone else should be too. I can't wait to see what it is he's talking about, and I'm sure we're going to see plenty of creativity from the Chipster as the year goes on. Not so sure we're going to see it here in this cream puff block, but you could look at it two ways. Obviously, you don't want to show a whole lot against cream puff opponents, but you also want to see if what you've been working on is going to work in a game. And even though you're facing way better opponents in practice than you're going to in these games, it's just different in the game. It just is. It's always more difficult to execute things like this in a game. So how much of the interesting, unique, fun stuff that we know of Chip do we get to see? Number 3, this is a big one for me, the pass to run ratio. We've been led to believe that this is going to be an offensive team that really wants to run the ball. But how much is really running the ball by their standards? We talking about 2019 or are we talking about 2022? Because there's a big difference. Both offenses ran the ball more than they passed, and I went back and ran some numbers. The last 5 seasons for the Buckeyes, excluding 2020, whenever I'm doing these things, I have to pull 2020 out because there's so many different variables in 2020. Teams played different games. It's just all wonky. So I pulled 2020 out, and I went with 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022, and 2023. 5 different versions of the Buckeye offense. How much did the Ohio State offense pass versus rush? It surprised me here. Now, the offense passed more than they rushed only 1 year, and that season was 2021, the first year under C.J. Stroud. 54% pass, 46% run. The rest of those years, they ran the ball more than they passed. In 2018, it was 50-50. In 2019, obviously an unbelievable offense under Justin Fields with J.K. Dobbins rushing for 2,000 yards. That Ohio State offense only passed the ball 38% of the time and ran the ball 62% of the time, which is wild. But even more wild, almost completely identical yardage. 3,684 passing yards, 3,735 rushing yards. In 2022, they passed the ball 47% of the time, rushed the ball 53% of the time. In 2023, they passed the ball 48% of the time, rushed the ball 52% of the time. So the general pattern under Ryan Day has been that the Buckeyes run the ball a couple of percentage points more than they pass the ball. Will we see that pattern continue, being just a few percentage points more rush than pass? Or are we going to see something more like 2019, where the yardage is pretty balanced out, but they're running the ball a whole lot more than they're passing the ball. 62% sounds pretty crazy. It didn't feel that way to me, and I was trying to figure out why. I'm just thinking back to that season, and it just didn't feel like it was that out of whack. And then I saw Justin Fields had 137 rushes for 484 yards. Obviously, more than that, but you have to take away the yards for sacks. That's not sack adjusted right there. So 137 carries. We're talking 10 carries a game from Fields. And a lot of times when I'm watching a game, when the quarterback ends up running with the ball, whether it's a scramble or even a design run, sometimes it just seems like it doesn't really seem like a rush to me. It just doesn't stand out as, the running back ran the ball. And I think that's why, to me, when I think back to 2019, that offense, I would not ever have guessed that it was 62% rushes. But that awesome offense, Justin Fields was a huge part of that rushing game. 10 carries a game is big from the quarterback. And when we look at it, 10 carries a game, and JK still rushed for 2,000 yards. Master Teague and Marcus Crowley combined for another 1,000 yards on the ground. 3,000 yards by the running backs, with the quarterback rushing 10 times a game. A whole lot of people saying, I don't want to see Will Howard run the ball too much because we got two great running backs and I don't want to take it out of their hands, which is true. But as you can see from 2019, plenty to go around for Justin Fields to rush the ball 10 times a game, 137 rushes on the year, and still get those running backs a ton of yards. But there was a big difference 5 years ago. And we're still hearing a whole lot of talk about how long this season is going to be. The amount of wear and tear the guys are going to get, the need to play depth. And don't get me wrong, I'm incredibly excited to play that depth. This is something I've been looking forward to for a long time. And as we hear the coaches talk about this season and the length of the season, it seems to me like they definitely want to play the depth. And we've not had a year with so much ready-made depth. I don't even think this is depth. So many of these guys would be starting, but the guys came back. So these are like starters and then 1Bs in a lot of positions. But this kind of stuff is why I laugh, to talk about how long this season's going to be. So listen to this. Last year, in the old system, you had to play, provided you went to your conference championship game, 15 games to win a national championship. You now have to play 16 games, but there will be the occasional national championship game participant who's playing game number 17 because they lost their conference championship. So we're talking one more game, but here's the really interesting stat running these numbers. Last year, the Buckeyes averaged 64 offensive plays a game in 13 games, 831 total offensive plays. In 2018, they ran 1,131 offensive plays. In 2019, 1,069. At 64 plays a game, that's what they ran last year. 2018, 4.7 more games worth of offensive plays. 2019, 3.7 more games worth of offensive plays. People are over here talking about the wear and tear on the bodies. What's more consequential to wear and tear on the player? Traveling to play an extra game or two, staying in a hotel, or the actual playing of the football? Of course, it's the actual playing of the football. And 5 and 6 years ago, the Buckeyes were playing 4 more games worth of football plays on offense. In fact, at the new plays per game, at about 64 plays a game, they would play 15% less plays this season with 17 games than they did with 13 games in 2018. So that's just the math. Technically, the season is longer, and you do have that really tough run of opponents at the end, which certainly makes a huge difference. But the truth is, they're playing less football than they did 5 years ago, even with the extended season. They just are. There's a few reasons for that. Obviously, you got the big first down rule. Clock not stopping on first downs is huge. But more so than that, it's the speed of the offenses. They've slowed down quite a bit. And with the huddling this year, and we just watched Florida State the other day and Georgia Tech, Seeing a whole lot of huddling. Buckeyes have been talking about huddling a lot. We might see less than that 64 offensive plays a year than we saw last year, which I was really hoping to pick up the tempo on that. But I've been hearing a lot of people say recently that football is trending towards, after so many years of trending towards more and more points, back towards more of a defensive trend. All across college football, points are down. I don't know that that is the stat to cite to show that, because I don't think many people are factoring in. You kind of really got to judge this by points per play, because the plays have decreased per game. You can't just judge it by games. I don't have the energy to do that, nor do I care. All I know is we are perfectly positioned for a more defensive style of game. So we're all good on that front. But I was hoping when Chip came in that we were going to see more plays per game. And I'm not so sure now with the helmet comms and the huddling that we're going to. Number 4, the tight end rotation. When Will Kazmarek came in as a transfer from Ohio University, watched a ton of his film, and he is a really good blocker. He's a very good receiving tight end, caught 20 balls, looked really good doing it. Very good straight line speed, not a super shifty guy. The kind of tight end that just, he's a dirt dog. You know what I mean? The guy gets it done. He'll lay the wood. He's fun to watch. And I just felt like they were bringing him in to be tight end 1 because they weren't really sure that G was ever going to be a guy who could be that, every down 11 personnel tight end. He just needed to improve a whole lot from last year as far as his blocking goes to this year to be able to have confidence in him being that guy. Now, I'm certainly rooting for G to be able to do that, but he had a good ways to go. We heard in the spring that Will Kazmarek was not picking it up so fast, which of course was to be expected. Jumping up a level in talent, learning a whole new offense. And I kind of started to doubt whether or not he was going to make the transition from the MAC to Ohio State. And halfway through fall camp, most of the reports we were hearing were still that G was going to be that number 1 guy. I'm not so sure. I think it's going to be Will Kazmarek who's going to be that main guy. We're still going to see both of them quite a bit, but I think it's going to be Kazmarek, and I think it's not really going to be hugely consequential because they're going to be running 12 personnel a lot anyway. But I do think Kazmarek is going to be number 1. So I'm interested to see that. And of course, very interested to see how much Jelani plays. Do they get Jelani in a little earlier, or do they wait until the game's totally out of hand before they get Jelani in? I really want to see them try to accelerate his play. And I think the best way to do that is to learn on the field. Let him make mistakes on the field. I think it changes everything for a young guy to learn on the field. Number 5, the linebackers. We know James Laurinaitis is going to play the guys who deserve to play that week. Doesn't matter how old they are. And he has been saying this for a while. If I got 5, I'm going to play 5. And then he showed us some indication that he's actually going to do this when Arvell Reese went out and won the silver bullet of the day in scrimmage number 1. And then in scrimmage number 2, Arvell Reese was running with the ones. Certainly sounds like he's going to stick to that word. Doesn't matter how old you are. If you are making the plays and you're doing what you need to do, you're going to play. What's that going to look like? You're going to start off the game. You got Cody, you got Sonny. We know that. How often do we see Arvell Reese in there? Gabe Powers, CJ Hicks. How often do we see 3? Going to be very interesting to see how this linebacker core looks. But I think the most exciting thing is they're going to look good. I really believe that. And that was a room that I had question marks about. Number 6, this offensive line should be able to absolutely dominate the line of scrimmage against this cream puff part of the schedule. Absolutely dominate. Even without Donovan Jackson, or if he's limited with his hamstring. We have seen years past, even last year, but many years where the Ohio State offensive line plays games early in the season against a Youngstown State, against an Indiana, and we would absolutely expect them to dominate the line of scrimmage And they haven't. And it's always frustrating. This line in particular, with everything they've been through, with the chip on their shoulder that Josh Fryer says they have. We heard him just last week. People wanted me replaced in the portal. Seth McLaughlin's the worst center in the country. Donovan Jackson, if he was any good, he'd already be in the NFL. They're coming in with the big chip on their shoulder, and we certainly are feeling much better about them than we were heading into the spring. Things have just been going up and up and up for this offensive line. I want to see these guys do what they should do, and that is dominate the Akron front. The first 3 games, really. I just want to see them really look dominant, playing with a chip on their shoulder and really looking dominant. And it's going to be very exciting if they do. If they don't, and they still got some work to do, it is what it is. But if they come out and they do what they're supposed to do and look absolutely dominant, that's going to be really exciting. It's going to be very exciting. And like I said, Akron's got a good pass rusher. They really do. So it's going to be interesting to be able to see wherever he's lined up, go against a big pass rusher or a good pass rusher. He's their best player on the team. And we've seen good pass rushers in the MAC. Sometimes they can get down for sure. Number 7. This is one that we might not see it this year. I do think we're eventually going to see it sometime in his career. But do we actively see the coaching staff giving the directive to take a couple shots to JJ? I think in the spring game, we saw orders from headquarters to the quarterback to get JJ some shots. You remember the Randy rules from when Randy Moss was in Minnesota. The Randy rules were Randy is going to get a couple shots every game. And I just feel like with this guy, he's just so talented. He makes such ridiculous catches that it's almost criminal not to make sure he gets a couple opportunities with the long ball every single game. And I just felt like during the spring game when Ryan Day was on the sideline and he was like, watch this, that he just is kind of feeling this. Like, I need to get this guy a couple shots. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if we're going to see those JJ shots. And I would love for there to be orders from headquarters like, look, you better take a shot in this situation or that situation, whatever they need to work out. We want to see a couple shots to JJ. I don't think there's much bad that can come out of it because he's just so powerful. If it's anywhere in the vicinity, he's going to make sure they don't pick it or he gets it. Number 8, Larry Johnson calls Caden Curry and Kenyatta ones. And they should be ones, right? JT and Jack usually in most circumstances would be gone to the NFL. If there wasn't NIL, if the losses to Michigan hadn't happened, if things were different in their careers, they would definitely have been gone. Caden Curry and Kenyatta didn't hit the portal. They could be starting almost anywhere else, and they would have made a lot of money. The guys that were of that caliber who entered the portal, they really had a lot of leverage. There weren't a lot of them out there, and they made a lot of money. They got paid all around the country. Those guys stayed. The question is, how much are we going to see this defensive line rotate? How about those guys that he calls ones? It's less a question about the interior for me because I think like those guys on the end really deserve it. But at the same time, you got a couple of potential first rounders in front of them. We heard Jim Knowles say that he brought up Caden McDonald 2 times, unprompted totally. So we know he's incredibly high on him. Hero Canoe entering year number 3 looks amazing physically. He's just an absolute moose. From chest to back, the guy's like this big. He's just a moose, man. Played good in the fall. We didn't hear a ton about him, but I know that he did play good. He's just, I don't know if he's not a sexy player that people like to talk about. That's a really good football player. Jason Moore, it sounds like he's not quite there yet. We were thinking that he was going to be heading in, and we didn't hear a lot about Jason Moore. I think as the season goes on, we're going to hear more and more about him. He's just a really good football player and a crazy physical specimen at 6'6" with incredibly long arms. He's gotten a lot thicker as well. But how much are we going to see this defensive line rotate? Is this going to be more of, a 1A, 1B situation at a couple of these spots? Or is this going to be like before and we're just going to see him in garbage time? Really interested to see how Larry plays this. Number 9, Will Howard's rushing attempts. We got a lot of mixed messages from the staff here. We really have no idea how this is going to go. Kansas State, 4 carries a game for Will Howard. 2019, 10 carries a game for Justin Fields. We know that Will Howard does not scramble. He didn't scramble at Kansas State. He stayed in the pocket. And he's great at staying in the pocket, creating space for himself and delivering a pass. Very rarely did he take off. How often is he going to keep it on his reads? Are they going to instruct him just to use that as a threat a couple times a game? We listened to Chip and Will in their media availability 2 weeks ago, and the overarching point from those two talking 2 weeks ago was these quarterbacks are going to run the ball. Like, they consistently brought it up. It was the day that Chip brought up that he runs 22 miles an hour. All the quarterbacks are over 20 miles an hour. And then the very next press conference, Chip Kelly was up there and downplayed it. And it's just mixed messages every time. We've gone through it with Ryan Day too. I've heard him literally talk about, just like Chip, really excited with the 22 miles an hour about the quarterback run. And then the next time out, kind of downplay it. So I don't think we're going to get a gauge with the cream puffs, right? There's no reason to put him in that kind of danger. But at the same time, man, you bring Will Howard in. You got Chip Kelly, who knows how to use a guy like that. I don't think you are maximizing what Will Howard brings unless you're letting this guy run the ball. So really curious to see that. Not quite sure we're going to get a decent answer off of it during the cream puff section of the schedule. But that's definitely on my top 10 questions. And number 10, and maybe the most important, man, it has been a while since we've seen a Buckeye team that plays with an attitude. And that's what I want to see out of this team, an attitude of toughness. And I think, at least I hope, that this whole team is going to feel quite a bit different out there than we're used to in the last couple of years. And the reason I feel that way is how much they were scrapping during camp. We've not seen this kind of attitude from a Buckeye team in a while. I want them to absolutely own it out there. We've got some of the best athletes in college football. They're beasts. And I want to see them act like it. I want to see them be tough. I want to see them know that they're the best in the country. I want to see IGB snapping. You know what I mean? I want to see Jack flexing on dudes. Like, I want to see them get nasty with guys. I want to see 11 silver bullets in the frame at the tackle. I just want to see some fire that I don't feel like we've seen in a while. I want to see Brandon Innis getting up in somebody's face. Like, I want to see some fire. And we've just had kind of a blah attitude the last couple of years. And I just feel like we got a different unit this year. And if we see this, man, the rest of the country is in trouble and we are in for an amazing run. I think this is so important. So those are my top 10 questions and the top 5 players I'm most excited for to see this Saturday. Number 1, definitely JJ. It's finally time to unleash the beast. Number 2, Caleb Downs. One of the best players in college football, plays on our team. We've seen next to nothing out of him. We finally get to see him. Number 3, Sonny Styles. One of my all-time favorite recruits from the state of Ohio coming out of high school. I've just been enamored with this guy's skill set forever. He's finally in the starting lineup. He looks ridiculous, and I can't wait. I can't wait for Sonny. Number 4, Brandon Innis. I've always been a huge fan of this guy's play, his attitude, his leadership. I think this year he cements himself in the eyes of the public as a first-round type of guy. We've seen very little to this point, but what we've seen, I love. And I know without a doubt, we're going to see him setting the tone when it comes to blocking and I am so pumped for BI. And number 5, Quinshon Judkins, just a great back and so fun to watch. I don't rank him ahead of Trey. I think Trey showed us last year, man, he is absolutely that dude. They're different kinds of backs. I want to see Trey get more carries. But Quinshon's something special as well, just in a different way. Quinshon's more my style of back, and I hate that because, I think I said it before. I hate a transfer coming in and stealing our guys' shine. You know what I mean? Like, it almost feels like an invader. I haven't embraced him yet as our guy, like totally. I will after a couple games, I'm sure. But those are the 5 guys I am most looking forward to seeing. Shout out to JUCK ON BUCKS official sponsor, Columbus Apparel Co. Check them out at columbusapparelco.com. They got a really nice line of Ohio and Columbus themed merchandise. They make a really cool line of JUCK ON BUCKS apparel. I'm talking all nice blend stuff, modern cuts, all screen printed, none of that David Sanders hot press stamp garbage, the real deal. And you can find that all at columbusapparelco.com. But they really specialize in screen printing, custom shirts and gear, anything you need. I've been in a business for 20 years where I have to, for uniforms, get shirts printed en masse. And the number of times I've been disappointed far outweighs the number of times I've been satisfied. And it's never been easier now to get custom shirts printed. Do a Google search, up pops the latest fly-by-night company. You design it, you get it printed. Don't make the mistake of doing that. Deal with someone who cares. Deal with someone who shares our passion. These folks are Buckeyes. They're Juckeyes. And if you get shirts printed or anything like that, hit them up at Columbus Apparel Co. Drop JUCK20 in the promo box. Get it hooked up, man. These guys are great. I absolutely love them. They will make sure you get everything done right. And don't make the mistake of ordering that stuff online from one of those companies. It's always garbage, I promise you. They'll take care of you over at columbusapparelco.com. The notice of allegations got delivered to Ann Arbor, and I am not particularly interested in that right now. That is off-season fodder for me. Whatever happens, I'm not wasting my time, but I will watch the Stallions documentary because it's going to be really funny. And I think that I'm just going to go ahead and pop on live. So if you guys want to watch that together and we can chat and shoot the crap about the absolute nonsense that is, I'm probably going to pop that puppy up. And I think I'm also going to pop on Thursday where we got a Big Ten matchup, Minnesota and North Carolina. North Carolina, a 1.5 point favorite. Big Ten versus ACC. Mac Brown, I love that guy. And that nerd, PJ Fleck. That's going to be a fun game. But we also got at the same time North Dakota State and Colorado. Colorado, a 9.5 point favorite. North Dakota State has a shot. They can ugly this sucker up. And boy, would that be fun for me. I would absolutely love it. North Dakota State is a team that plays a lot like, just like a Kansas State team. Like they just do everything right. And they are tough to play. And that is why any AD who puts them on the schedule should absolutely lose their job. Because these guys got a shot. They absolutely do. So Thursday, we will get on and watch a little bit of those games together. So join me then. But I do want to let you know that later on today at actually 1 o'clock, I'm going to be on live on Scoop Duck with my buddy Max Torres over there from Scoop Duck. That's Oregon's On3 site. And Max Torres is awesome. So we're going to be over there talking Ducks, talking Bucks, maybe some recruiting, some more Big Ten stuff. And always enjoy him. He is the absolute number one guy that covers the Oregon Ducks. And we're going to have some fun. So 1 o'clock today over on Scoop Duck Live. Look out for that. Get your boys back in the chat because the Ducks might be coming after me. You never know. Now, the games this week, this is amazing. We've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday college football. Friday, not great, but high school football. We'll have a lot of scores running in. We might pop up and go over some of the high school highlights. But Friday, we get Oklahoma, Temple. Not going to be a great game, but I do want to see Oklahoma. They're a 43-point favorite, so not so hot. But also we got Michigan State, Florida Atlantic. Michigan State, just a 13.5-point favorite. Wisconsin and Western Michigan. Wisconsin, a 24.5-point favorite. in those games, I do want to see, once the season gets cooking, I don't feel like I'm probably going to get to see a lot of Michigan State, but I do want to see Aiden Childs, their quarterback. I kind of want to see what Jonathan Smith's team looks like. I want to see Wisconsin. I want to see Phil Longo's offense. I want to see some things. And sometimes those games, those teams kind of get lost in the shuffle. So I'll definitely be watching those. Saturday, we got Clemson versus Georgia, and I know a lot of you are really looking for Georgia to mollywop them. I got to tell you, we got a 13.5-point line. If it was 14, I think I'd be pounding Clemson. I think they're going to I think it's going to go one of two ways. Clemson is going to keep it relatively close, or they're going to get absolutely slaughtered. But I'm really leaning towards Clemson keeping it close. I think we're going to see more of a classic Clemson team this year. And I think Georgia's overvalued. So I could be totally wrong, but I am going to probably go with Clemson plus 13.5. Also at 12 o'clock on Saturday, we got Penn State heading into West Virginia. Penn State at 8.5-point favorite. That's another very exciting matchup. 3:30, of course, we got our Buckeyes, and we've also got Miami and Florida. Miami a 2.5-point favorite. I'm salty that game is at the same time as our Buckeyes because I really was looking forward to that one. And I don't do the two screens when the Buckeyes are playing. I need to be totally focused. After the Bucks, we got Notre Dame. Of course, we're going to be here first for the post-game show. And we're also going to have on at 7:30 Notre Dame and Texas A&M. Texas A&M now a 2.5-point favorite over Notre Dame. That's just hysterical to me. Notre Dame, they were a 1.5-point favorite like a month ago in that look-ahead line. Now they're a dog. Then we got a nightcap. Both of the Arizona schools are playing late. Arizona State plays Wyoming. That should be a pretty good game. Arizona State just a 6.5-point favorite. Then Arizona plays New Mexico. And that wraps up Saturday's action. Then Sunday, we got a big showdown. Lincoln Riley, very upset that he had to play this game, tried to get out of it forever, plays LSU. And Brian Kelly and Lincoln Riley, two of the most hateable coaches in all of college football, square off. USC getting 4.5 points. That was more like 6.5 a little while ago. So money's coming in on USC, which is interesting. I wouldn't have imagined that. The total, 63.5. So they're expecting a high-scoring game. And we have got a battle of the two most obnoxious, arrogant coaches in football. Who are you rooting for? I've not decided yet. I want to lean LSU. But then part of me is like, we got a Big Ten SEC matchup. I don't want to hear them talking about it. Might I have to root for USC, or is this just a lose-lose or win-win in either situation, and I should just root for the team I like more, which is definitely LSU. And then we got one more juicy one on Monday, my birthday. I am getting new flooring upstairs, which I'm very excited about. It has been a year since I've waited for this flooring. Supply chain and such is what they tell me. Who knows if that's true? But we got new flooring coming in on Monday. And then we got a juicy game as Bill O'Brien and Boston College try to beat Florida State and give them their second loss to open the season, totally knocking them out of a contention. And that's all I really want for my birthday. So that is our brief on what's going down moving forward in the week as far as football games. And Jonah Williams, 5-star linebacker, best linebacker in the country, who's probably going to be a safety in college, was leaning Texas A&M until their baseball coach left and went to Texas. And then it looked like he was going to end up going to Oregon. Well, he is committed to Texas. And it looked for a while like Oregon was not just going to get him, but also DJ Pickett, 5-star corner who committed to LSU. So Jonah Williams commits to Texas. 5-star athlete Michael Terry looks like he's going to commit to Texas too. Oregon was in on him. And the momentum that Oregon had on the recruiting trail has really calmed down since DeCorian Moore. It did look like for a minute there they were going to absolutely pull a crazy class, and that slowed down quite a bit. Still looking like it's going to be really, really good. But It's definitely cooled down, and I'll talk to Max about that later today. Max, the last time he was on the show with me, I said to him that Dan Lanning, I believe, is taking Oregon recruiting up to a totally different level. And he was kind of defending Mario Cristobal, that really Mario Cristobal was, kind of right there. And I don't think he believes that anymore, but we'll discuss that a little later today at 1:00. Make sure you guys are there, man. Like I said, I need some backup. I need the Menace Army. That's what I need. Don't let those Ducks get me. All right. What else do we got today, my friends? I think that's about it. I'd like to hear what your questions are. A couple of the things in the store at columbusco.com if you guys are interested in any of this stuff. This shirt goes out to all of our members on my YouTube page. So if you'd like to join that, that's a 60-40 blend. That's a sick shirt. I absolutely love it. Everything's really soft and fantastic. Oh, the Colorado. So I was on my live stream over the weekend, and somebody asked me if I had checked out the new white Colorado State uniforms, and I looked it up real quick on my phone, and I saw something totally different than what they actually are. So these are the new Colorado State white uniforms. It's an Under Armour uniform, usually trash. I really like this. They incorporate it. Look, first off, it's simple. I love the sleeves. I love the way they incorporated the state flag. That's good. That's good. Under Armour usually finds a way to jack everything up. They've done a solid job here. I really dig it. So, all right, guys, that's our show today. I appreciate you all so much. Please check me out in podcast. Please like the video. And I will talk to you later on today, hopefully at 1:00. Live show over at Scoop Duck. Me and Max Torres talking Ducks, talking Bucks. See you then. Juckonbucks out.